Welcome everyone back to the weekly weather podcast, and in this week's podcast we're going to be having a look at the Saharan dust storm that we've just recently seen, with a big plume coming up from North Africa. Now, the worst conditions were over parts of Spain, parts of Europe, but even the UK did see some big deposits of dust, especially in the south, and that heavy rainfall we saw a couple days ago. Now, some of you may not have seen it, but I've seen plenty of images from the south of some quite large dust deposits, especially this early in the year as well. We'll have a look at some of the images and the data from it, and then we'll also have a look at what caused it, really, in terms of sort of the pressure patterns driving up low pressure up from the south, bringing all this air right up from Africa. So remember, if you enjoy this podcast, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So if we do start by having a look at the reanalysis from the GFS. Now, this is last Thursday, so only just over a week ago now, and you can see we do have high pressure to our east, low pressure to our west. We're seeing low pressure trying to come in off the Atlantic, and because of this blocking high, what we see is these low pressure systems dive southwards, and by the weekend we see low pressure dive all the way down to sort of North Africa, in the Mediterranean towards Portugal and Spain. And what this does is it drags up warm air and all this dust up from North Africa. We see this cut-off low really diving very far southwards, and you can see the tightening of the isobars spreading all of this warm Saharan dust northwards. And you can see, if we do run it onwards, you can see that warm 15-degree isotherm spreads up into Spain, into Europe, and within that is all the Saharan dust, and it really did blanket some areas, giving a real orange tint to both the sky, and we'll see in a minute, to some ski slopes as well. Now, it's sort of faded away now, and it's moving away. Of course, it's not going to last particularly long, as it all is about the exact positioning of the low pressure system driving the wind up from the south for a day or two, and you can see that low pressure has filled in, and that air sort of flow with the Saharan dust has cut off. But it is possible we could see this once again in the near future. With this high pressure to the east, low pressure to the west, diving southwards, we could see more of these southerly plumes, giving potentially warmer weather, but also these Saharan dust storms. Well, that's what it was, at least for parts of Europe. For the UK, most likely just a bit of a plume, some redder skies, and potentially some dust deposits in any showers. So do move over to Twitter and have a look. Now you can see here, this is Saharan dust from Africa blanketing a ski resort in Spain, a snowy landscape turned Martian. Look at this incredible footage of the top layer of the ski slope is orange with dust. That looks truly exceptional, and this is all of this dust being dragged up from near North Africa, and you can see it's much more severe, of course, in Spain than it was in the UK, being, of course, closer to the origins of this dust. But yeah, real severe conditions, and of course very ominous as well. I can imagine back before we had sort of detailed satellite images and we could see the Saharan dust coming, we could see the pressure patterns, this would have been a very weird sort of event before sort of modern satellite era, seeing everything turn orange, the ground turning orange. Now, of course, this isn't good for ski slopes, because if you think about, of course, reflection, white reflects the sunlight better, keeping the ground colder. But with Saharan dust allowed, perhaps now we're going to be seeing more absorption of solar energy, and unfortunately that's going to mean potentially an increase in melting. Now, I'm not an expert of this, of course, and this rarely happens, really, these sort of events. So it's very difficult to say exactly what could happen, but this could have quite a bad impact on snow levels over the next few weeks, absorbing more of that solar energy, meaning the top layers of snow does decrease. But we'll have to see exactly with that. That is only sort of a hint that I've seen from some people. By no means is it guaranteed, but of course, just following simple sort of radiation with physics, you can see there is quite a high chance now that we do see some quite rapid melts, perhaps with this amount of Saharan dust around. And of course, unlike snow, which evaporates or melts and evaporates, Saharan dust isn't going to go anywhere. It's just going to sort of mix in, so it's not going away anytime soon on these top level surfaces, of course, until the snow sort of melts away and sort of diminishes away. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with this, but yeah, real interesting conditions. Now, if we do have a look at another image, a cloud duvet over the continent yesterday, it's thought that Saharan dust helped thicken the layer of cirrus more than usual, and you can see this real well-defined weather front. And that would have been a cold front, and you see the UK would have been the chillier air, and you can see across Europe with that warmer plume of Saharan dust. And of course, this did get to the UK, this sort of air mass, but it is retreating eastwards now. And under that, that's where we saw all the Saharan dust being deposited, and you can see how thick it is with that defined sort of cloud boundary. Very cool seeing this sort of image, but just shows you where that Saharan dust was. Have a look at another image, and you can see here Saharan dust can be clearly seen in pink, moving overnight across the south. Highest concentration will be seen in the evening, rainfall likely to bring some of it down, and that's what we saw. You can see this big plume within the weather front, within the cloud, moving northwards. And of course, it did impact the southern edge of the UK, and some areas did see some dust deposits. If we move up further up on the on the timeline, you can see unreal sky over Switzerland, Sahara dust colouring the sky orange this lunchtime. Really severe conditions. Real ominous, really. Looks sort of apocalyptic, really, with this sort of pattern. Of course, it's nothing too bad. The air, yes, will be a bit more polluted. There will be some more particles in the air. Won't be the best for breathing, but by no means is it terrible. But yeah, just really looks really quite ominous with this orange sky, apocalyptic, as I said. Have another look up. You see in Richmond, in London, you can see all these brown specks, and that is Saharan dust that has been brought down by the rainfall. Now, as I said, to all the UK, we haven't got as high a concentration of Saharan dust as parts of Europe have. But we still have it quite high up in the atmosphere, so the precipitation can bring it down to the surface, and that's what we've seen, lighter precipitation with the dust within the water droplets. When that water droplets start to evaporate, leaves the dust behind, and that's where we see these dust deposits. So it looks really, it doesn't look great. And I guess there's a lot of people, especially in the south, probably have had to go get their car washed, or there has been a lot of rain around as well, so perhaps it has been washed away naturally, but still, real severe dust deposits here. This is some of the worst I've seen for the UK, really, especially in March as well. 'Cause sometimes we see this in the summer with big, warm, southerly plumes, but this wasn't anything too exceptional. So yeah, very interesting seeing this. Another chart, and this is just an animation showing the dust column mass density, so of course the amount of dust within the air. And if we do run it back to the start, you can see this is a forecast, and you can see the yellow is that all the Saharan dust. You can see where it is concentrated across North Africa, of course, and in around sort of the desert areas of the Middle East. And you see this big plume that's spreading up from Europe all the way up towards the UK, skimming the far southeast, but mainly impacting parts of Europe. And of course, it will head much further northwards, but decreasing, of course, in concentration as it does. And you can see the majority of it does hang back over North Africa. So you can see again, it's still spiraling around, and it's likely to see some of this come back as we see easterly winds over the next week or so, or at least an easterly flow. But again, just shows you how the atmosphere really works, how all these things get carried around. It's very weird and interesting seeing this Saharan dust air from 1,000 miles away getting imported towards the UK and seeing dust deposited on the ground. Now, if we finally have a look at another image showing the relative concentration of Saharan dust, and again, within rain, we can see deposited on most surfaces. Car washers will be happy, of course. And you can see here, quite high, not crazy high for the UK, higher towards Europe, but we have seen it impact the UK as well. But you see, of course, the main deposits are over parts of North Africa. Now, some may argue that this is actually quite good for the UK, because, of course, all this dust has more nutrients in it for growing, of course, depositing on the ground, so it can actually be quite good. But it's not coming in massive amounts, so I don't think it'll make much of a difference. But it's not too bad of a thing. But it's just, of course, very, very interesting seeing this coming this early in the year. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on this. We could see more plumes over the next couple of weeks with maybe more southerly winds. But I thought it was just nice to have a look back at what happened this. Because, of course, I did allude to it in the videos, saying there was the potential for some orange skies and some dust deposits. But I didn't think it was going to be as bad, or at least as ominous as we've seen with some of these images here. So anyway, been a bit of a shorter podcast this week. Again, this topic is reasonably small, nothing too much to talk about, but of course I did want to have address it, as I know probably a lot of people were a bit like, wow, what is going on with all these dust deposits? So yeah, interesting seeing this happening. Could happen again over the next few weeks with southerly winds, of course, with the sort of blocking patterns we have around at the moment with big Scandinavian high. Always the possibility, even though easterly winds are favoured, of seeing it veer more southerly, and that's where we see these southerly plumes of warmer Saharan air. So I'll have to keep an eye on that over the next few weeks. But for the time being, Saharan dust has moved through. It is settling down now. There's not too much left towards the UK, and I hope everyone has stayed. Everyone has stayed safe out there. Of course, I know this may have caused some issues for some with breathing problems, but I don't think it was too bad in the UK. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for a forecast later.